Are film festivals still a way for an independent film to get distribution, or are those days over? Is it a platform for Hollywood movies?
Okay, well, I'll just give you my perspective on it, which is that as an independent movie, if you made a movie that is a review-driven movie that is going to go to New York and go to Los Angeles, if you do not get into a film festival, one of the major ones, and that being either Sundance, Berlin, Cannes, Toronto, Venice, or New York Film Festival, what am I missing? If you don't get into one of those, you're dead in the water. Absolutely 100% dead in the water.
First prize of the Dallas Film Festival.
Do you get a chance at distribution like the old days, where you get a film there and there's bidding wars going on and people are coming up to you?
You have Midwestern farm families.
I've done quite a few of those deals where people kind of bum rush you and said, okay, I want to make the deal in the next half an hour. I don't think that happens so much anymore. It still does. It still does, but it's less frequent than it used to be. The numbers for distribution for films in America, we come out of Sundance, you go into it with maybe them showing 150 films, of which 40 of them were legitimate movies, meaning that they had movie stars in them that were recognizable on some level, or they were a movie that wasn't just straight up art, but had a chance to have some kind of box office. And then out of those 40, each year, 15 to 20 of those films were actually getting picked up for distribution, and then maybe another 10 later on for much lower money. But the numbers aren't huge, and the distribution numbers for what people pay for movies these days are far less than we were getting 5 to 10 years ago. 10 years ago, if I sold a movie for $4 million in the U.S., it was like, darn, I wish I'd gotten 6 or I could have gotten 8 or whatever. Now, if you sell a film for $1 million, you're just, I'm so happy I got $1 million for it. So I think that what's happened is that we've tried to, in order to make up that gap, that kind of lack of films being paid a lot of money for, we're making movies for less. We're making films with digital cameras and making them with smaller crews and shooting faster. So instead of making a film for $10 million, an independent movie for $8 million, we're trying to make it for $3 or $4 million because at the other side of it, you're not going to sell it for more than $1 million in the U.S. So it forces you to rethink the way that you're making an independent movie. But you still have to go to a film festival, and the days of those bidding wars, in Sundance, I'm trying to think like how many bidding wars were there. And there was maybe 2. Yeah, way back was 1, and Don John's Addiction, 2 out of 200 films.
Well, that's true, but in 2009 we saw like a dozen films get picked up at Sundance. It was just a bloodletting. But this year there were over 62. Now Cassian's exactly right. The money they're paying is much smaller than it used to be. But if the question is, can you find distribution for your film at a festival? There are a lot of distributors that are sucking up content there. You just don't expect to make millions and millions of dollars as you do so.
Well, but I think the thing I want to say that I, being on that side, didn't understand about it was that it's not being at a festival. Being at a festival is not about a distributor seeing your film. It's about generating buzz for your film. And that's the importance of the festival. It's and he touched on it when he first said it. It's like it's getting reviewed. It's getting written up. It's having people give their stamp of approval. It's having Sundance being able to say Sundance like this, and then the critics who attend Sundance like this, and the distributor, they are reactionary to that. It's not a dude in the audience who watches your film and is like, I love this film, I'm gonna get it to audiences. And I think it's an important difference to see, because I think that we are at a different age, and we all have to be aware that that's the model working now, but there may be a new model of generating buzz for your film. And we have to be looking towards what that model could be, because whoever gets there first is
the reason why the festivals have worked so well for independent movies is because you get to watch your movie with a real audience as opposed to watching it in a screening room with 3 people, which is how the studios used to watch independent movies. Beg somebody from Sony to see your movie, and they'll watch it at lunchtime and take phone calls while they're watching the movie. So the festivals became a great place to actually show the film, because the people who were buying movies were actually stuck there in Park City, or they're stuck in Toronto, and there's really not much else for them to do other than go to see movies, which if you showed them the movie in Los Angeles, they'd find 40 reasons not to watch a movie here, because they want to go home to their families, or they're too busy, or they had a big, whatever it is, or they had a lunch meeting that went on and on. So there's so many reasons for people not to watch films here, and there's a lot of laziness amongst them. But more importantly, for most of those art house distributors, they kind of want to be able to gauge not just what the audience reaction is going to be, but they get an immediate reaction from the press within 48 hours of seeing a movie that they like. They already know whether the New York Times and the LA Times and the Village Voice or Entertainment Weekly or whoever it matters to them in terms of what the being able to sell the movie as a review-driven movie, what they're saying. So they can sit there and go, well, it wasn't just my taste that, because they're all so nervous about their own taste. It wasn't just me that said the movie was good, but Manohla Dargis from the New York Times said the movie's good, so that's why I bought it, so they can go back to their boss and say, we bought the movie because the guy or the woman from the New York Times already told us it's a great movie. So that's kind of what's going on inside the film festivals as well, and that's why the smaller ones don't really mean anything, because there's no film reviewers or anyone that matters going to those festivals. They're only going to the big festivals to see the latest movies, and usually the reviewers are going there to see the films that studios already own, that they're about to release theatrically, and they can get a head start from their competitors and see something that they haven't, that they can see before their competitor, or see a movie that nobody's heard of yet, but they were the champion of it. They said, oh my God, I saw Napoleon Dynamite. God, it's a great movie. And so that drives the distributors when they read those reviews, because they blog their reactions immediately. Within 24 hours of seeing a movie, they already are blogging what they thought about it, and then they'll write the review within another 24 hours.
Cassian, what are the festivals that you don't miss?
Sundance. I sometimes go to Berlin and sometimes don't, but it is a very important film festival. Then I'm going to Tribeca this year, even though it's been a nightmare trying to sell any movies in Tribeca. I don't go to South by Southwest because, they never sell any films out of there. I mean, and I say that's an exaggeration, but very few films ever get distribution out of South by Southwest. So the ones to me are Sundance, Berlin, Cannes, Venice, Toronto, New York. New directors, new films, but usually those are films that are already shown somewhere else, and they've just picked them up to be like, hey, this is a very cool director. What am I missing? Am I missing anything else? I think those are the main ones, and then you've got all the smaller ones after that.
Do you go to Telluride?
Yeah, Telluride is a great film festival, but Telluride mostly now has become the Oscar films for the fall that nobody's heard of yet, but somehow or other some clever programmer at Telluride said, oh my God, that's an incredible film, and we'll get a head start on Toronto and show the movie there. There's very few films that show Telluride that don't have distribution or are looking for distribution. Usually they're movies that are going to come out in the fall.